In the Attica region of Greece, at approximately 37.97 degrees north and 23.72 degrees east, a flat-topped rock of blue-gray limestone rises some 70 meters above the surrounding city. This is the Acropolis. But our investigation begins not with what is on the rock, but what is inside it. The official record documents a network of caves and fissures, primarily along its northern slope, consecrated to minor deities and serving practical functions. The Clepsydra Spring House, a critical water source, has been in use for over 3,000 years. Yet these are merely the public-facing entrances to a far more complex subterranean system. The geology itself, a formation riddled with karstic voids, suggests a honeycomb structure far more extensive than what has been mapped. Geophysical surveys using ground-penetrating radar have repeatedly indicated significant anomalies, voids beneath the very foundations of the Parthenon and the Erechtheion that do not correspond to any known cellars or cisterns. These are not legends, but data points awaiting excavation. The primary obstacle is not a lack of curiosity, but a surfeit of caution. Any large-scale excavation risks destabilizing the priceless structures above, so the voids remain unverified. We do have one precedent for what might be hidden. In the 1930s, a previously unknown Mycenaean well was discovered, a concealed shaft descending more than 40 meters through the rock to a spring. This was not a public utility. It was a feat of Bronze Age engineering designed for clandestine access to water during a siege. It proves that for millennia, the inhabitants of this rock were engaged in advanced subterranean construction that was deliberately kept secret. The question is, what else did they build, and why have we not found it? This level of ancient engineering, hidden deep within the earth, is not an isolated case. But what happens when that same ingenuity is not buried, but lost to the sea? In the Attica region of Greece, at approximately 35.87 degrees north and 23.30 degrees east, the Aegean Sea holds the location of a profound technological mystery. This is the Antikythera wreck site. Discovered in 1900 by sponge divers blown off course, the remains of the Roman-era cargo vessel lie at a depth of 45 meters. Among the recovered marble statues and luxury glassware was a single, corroded lump of bronze, catalogued as Artifact 15,087. For decades it was dismissed as a rock, or perhaps part of a statue. It took until 1971 for the first X-ray radiographs to reveal its true nature. This was not a decorative object. This was a machine. High-resolution CORT scanning has since allowed us to digitally reconstruct what we now call the Antikythera mechanism. It consists of a complex system of at least 37 interlocking bronze gear wheels, allowing a user to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. It tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. The level of engineering miniaturization and its use of complex epicyclic gear trains are a complete anomaly. Nothing approaching this complexity appears in the archaeological or historical record again for over 400 years, until the astronomical clocks of medieval Europe. This is not a gradual evolution of technology. It is a sudden, inexplicable leap, followed by a millennium of silence. The ship itself was a high-value transport, not a unique scientific vessel. This implies the mechanism may not have been a one-of-a-kind prototype, but a standard piece of equipment for a certain class of individual. The forensic investigation of this object is, in essence, an exercise in reverse engineering a lost technological timeline. It forces a fundamental question. If this existed, where are its predecessors? Where are its descendants? It suggests an entire branch of Hellenistic mechanical science was simply erased. It's a disquieting thought that an entire school of scientific thought could vanish from the historical record. But what happens when it isn't just knowledge that disappears, but an entire population? An answer to how a Neolithic society honored its dead is found here in the Peloponnese region of southern Greece, at approximately 36.56 degrees north and 22.39 degrees east. This is Alapotrepa Cave. The name translates to foxhole. Its discovery was not the result of meticulous planning, but of a local man searching for his dog in 1958. He found an enormous cavern system that served as a settlement and, later, a massive ossuary for a Neolithic community. Around 3200 BC, its use ended when a powerful earthquake collapsed the entrance, sealing the site. This event perfectly preserved the contents for millennia. The main chamber is over 100 meters long, and excavations have uncovered the commingled remains of at least 170 distinct individuals, with estimates suggesting hundreds more. Men, women, and children were interred here, alongside their pottery, tools, and significant evidence of early silver and copper craft. It is one of the largest Neolithic ossuaries ever discovered in Europe. Forensic analysis of the skeletal remains indicates a relatively healthy population, with the disarticulated bones suggesting complex secondary burial rites rather than a single mass death event. The cave did not kill them, it preserved their final resting place. Unlike the Antikythera mechanism, the question here isn't one of lost knowledge, but of a lost people, whose extensive tomb was sealed by a catastrophic earthquake. It's a complete, if brutal, mortuary record. But what happens when the record itself is the mystery? When we find structures so anomalous, so out of place, that we can't even identify the people who built them? The answer to that question is found here, in the central Greece region on the island of Euboea, at approximately 38.05 degrees north and 24.45 degrees east. This is where we leave behind the certainty of a sealed tomb and confront structures whose builders remain entirely unidentified. Scattered across southern Euboea are 25 megalithic buildings known as the Dracospita, or dragon houses. The most prominent example sits near the 398-meter summit of Mount Ochi, constructed from massive limestone slabs assembled without mortar. The individual blocks are immense, prompting the folklore that gave them their name. The true architectural anomaly, however, is the roof. It is a corbelled vault, formed by progressively stacking huge, flat stones inward until they meet at the peak, creating a functional, pyramid-shaped ceiling. This technique is precise, effective, and profoundly out of place. Excavations conducted in 1959 by Professor Nikolaos Moutsopoulos unearthed pottery shards inside the main structure, dating from the 4th to the 2nd century BC. This Hellenistic-era dating is the accepted academic consensus, yet it creates more problems than it solves. The building style is Cyclopean, a method associated with the much earlier Mycenaean civilization over 1,000 years prior. Why would Greeks in the age of Alexander the Great, who had perfected post and lintel temple architecture, revert to this archaic brute force construction method in such a remote location? Theories for their purpose range from defensive outposts to religious sanctuaries or shelters for quarry workers, but none adequately explains the sheer effort or the chosen design. The dragon houses are a technological signature without a corresponding author, an architectural dialect that no one from the supposed time period was speaking. They are a record, but the script is an enigma, and they are not the only Greek structures to challenge our chronological understanding. That chronological challenge finds its most potent expression here in the Peloponnese region, at approximately 37.58 degrees north, 22.67 degrees east. In a field near the village of Helleniko stands a structure that, depending on which scientific paper you read, is either a provincial watchtower or the oldest pyramid on Earth. Visually, it is underwhelming. A small, truncated pyramid built from gray limestone, its base measuring roughly 7 by 9 meters. The 2nd century geographer Pausanias described it as a polyandrion, a collective tomb for soldiers from a mythic battle for the throne of Argos. For decades, this was just another piece of folklore. Then, in the 1990s, excavations involving the American School of Classical Studies at Athens unearthed material inside the structure firmly dated to the 4th century BC. The consensus was reached. It was a fortified agricultural tower from the Hellenistic period. Case closed until 1994. A team led by Professor Ioannis Lyritsis of the Academy of Athens bypassed the pottery and applied a different technique. thermoluminescence dating, performed directly on the stone blocks. The result was a calculated construction date of 2720 BC, plus or minus 580 years. The implication of this number is severe. It would make the Hellenikon pyramid a contemporary of the early Bronze Age city of Troy and, more importantly, a century older than the Pyramid of Djoser, long considered the world's first large-scale stone building. The academic response was swift and largely dismissive. Critics argue that thermoluminescence is highly unreliable for surface stones subjected to millennia of solar radiation and potential fires, and that the Hellenistic pottery remains the only verifiable, in-context evidence. Proponents of the earlier date simply state that the pottery only proves the structure was reused in the 4th century, not built then. The debate has created a permanent schism, a conflict between two methodologies. Do we trust the artifacts left by a building's last known occupants, or the atomic signature baked into its very stones? The answer determines whether this is a footnote in Greek agricultural history or the first chapter in global monumental architecture. That conflict of evidence at Hellenikon, a choice between artifacts and atomic signatures, is a luxury compared to the challenge we face in the Evros regional unit of Eastern Macedonia and Thrace. At approximately 40.50 degrees north, 25.53 degrees east, the island of Samothrace presents a different problem. Here, the issue isn't conflicting data, it's a meticulously engineered vacuum of it. For nearly 1,000 years, this island hosted the sanctuary of the great gods, a mystery cult whose influence rivaled that of Eleusis. The core mandate for its initiates was absolute silence. The rites, the doctrines, even the true names of the chthonic deities known only as the Megaloi Theoi, were forbidden knowledge. What makes this a unique historical problem is the cult's demographic. Unlike more exclusive mysteries, Samothrace was open to all: men, women, slaves, and kings. The surviving initiation lists are a cross-section of the ancient world. From Thracian commoners to Roman emperors like Hadrian, Philip II of Macedon met his future wife, Olympias, during the rites here. Yet from this vast and diverse alumni network, not a single primary account of the central ceremonies survives. All we have are second-hand allusions to its benefits, salvation from peril at sea, and the promise of a moral life. The forensic challenge is therefore immense. To reconstruct a belief system from its architectural shell, the layout of the sanctuary becomes the primary text. In the Anaktoron, where the first stage of initiation, or maiasis, occurred, benches line the walls, suggesting a seated audience observing a central event. In the Hieron, the site of the second higher degree of epoptea, the focus is an apse at the south end, but there is a conspicuous absence of a large, permanent altar for blood sacrifice. The architectural grammar suggests a revelation, not a transaction. The entire complex is an exercise in controlled experience, guiding initiates through a sequence of spaces designed to elicit a specific psychological response. But without the key, without the liturgy, we are simply analyzing the lock. In the autonomous monastic republic of Mount Athos in Chalkidiki, at approximately 40.25 degrees north, 24.32 degrees east, the problem of historical analysis is not a missing key, but a locked door. Where the secrets of Samothrace were lost to a vow of silence, the secrets of Athos are actively curated and withheld. The governing principle here is the avaton, a prohibition on entry for all females formally codified in a crucible by Byzantine Emperor Constantine IX Monomachos in the year 1046. For nearly a millennium, this rule has turned the Holy Mountain into one of the world's most exclusive archives. Behind the walls of its 20 sovereign monasteries lie, by conservative estimates, over 15,000 Byzantine manuscripts. This collection is supplemented by a vast repository of imperial and patriarchal documents, legal codes, and property deeds that chart the administrative and economic life of southeastern Europe for 1,000 years. The obstacle is not decay or destruction, it is policy. The Avaton effectively bars roughly 50% of the world's leading paleographers, historians, and conservators from first-hand access. While limited, male-only scholarship has occurred, it is by definition an incomplete and biased survey. The tantalizing mystery of Athos is not the rumored lost gospels or forgotten classical treatises. It is the unexamined bulk data, centuries of tax receipts, land surveys, and legal disputes that could provide a high-resolution economic and social model of the Byzantine and Ottoman worlds. For a community dedicated to preserving the past, they are remarkably selective about who gets to read it. The information isn't lost, it's filed. In the Peloponnese region of Laconia, at 36.51 degrees north, 22.98 degrees east, the problem of unexamined data is not one of clerical policy, but of 3 meters of water and 5,000 years of sediment. Where the archives of Athos are filed in vellum and parchment, the history of Pavlopetri was filed away by geology. This is the oldest known submerged city in the world. Discovered in 1967, the site was initially mapped with tape measures and snorkel gear. Today, the approach is less analog. A joint team from the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and the University of Nottingham has applied techniques more common to architectural engineering than to archaeology. Using high-resolution acoustic scanners and automated underwater vehicles, they have created a complete three-dimensional digital model of the nearly 30,000 square meter site. This is not an artist's impression. It is a precise digital twin of a Bronze Age city, complete with at least 15 identified buildings, a complex road network, and a necropolis of 60 cist graves. The digital forensics allow for a new kind of investigation. We can now analyze lines of sight down ancient streets and calculate the square footage of residential courtyards. The data reveals a meticulously planned urban center, not a haphazard settlement. Stratigraphic analysis of pottery fragments, including high-quality pythoid jars, confirms its occupation from at least 2800 BC until approximately 1100 BC, a continuous habitation of 1,700 years. It was a significant manufacturing and trade hub, a vital node in the Aegean network connecting mainland Greece to Minoan Crete. But the digital model can't answer everything. The exact sequence of events that led to its submersion remains a subject of intense geological debate. Was it a single catastrophic earthquake, a series of smaller subsidences, or the slow, inexorable rise of the sea? By digitally peeling back the layers of sand and time, we are no longer just looking at ruins. We are reverse engineering a city's life and its death.